The rod in this video is not mine. Mr. Gary mailed it to me for testing and review. Without Mr. Gary and just a handful of others, half of the reviews on my channel would not exist. Now, I really appreciate Mr. Gary's support for obvious reasons, but so should you. Because if you're interested in buying this rod, you know that it's very hard to find a good review, in English anyway. Folks, before I remove this 2019 Vanquish to show you the rod real close, look how perfect it looks with this YAMAGA blanks. They're not only the same kind of black color, but they have the same amount of gloss. I mean, this rod and this reel look absolutely perfect for each other. Now let me first show you what we're reviewing today. This is YAMAGA BLANKS BlueCurrent TZ NANO. The exact model is 6'7" JH Special. And these are the specifications here if you're interested in that. I don't know them myself. Folks, this may be my fastest over-the-table video because this entire rod has absolutely nothing worth commenting. It's made of absolutely average components for a $300 Japanese ultralight rod. It's absolutely average looking from end to end. The build quality is absolutely average. There is just nothing worth commenting. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna make some comments because that's who I am. But these comments, I warn you, will be really trivial and petty and just trying to find something. The butt of the rod is just normal EVA foam. Absolutely nothing else to say about it. The diameter of the blank at the base here is 9.2 millimeters. Rather large for ultralight rod by today's standards. The handle, again, absolutely nothing to say about this handle. EVA foam and plastic. That's not even carbon. Is it carbon? Maybe it's carbon. Looks like plastic. The only good thing I can say about the handle is that it is full size, which is actually pretty rare for JDM rods because they try to save every bit of weight and they make them super small. And Japanese have small hands on the first place, so that's not even a problem for them. But I have me some huge paws, and I've said it before, I do appreciate enough resting surface for my hand. There is no hook keeper, of course, which I have to say is a little bit surprising because this rod is not the lightest. It's got a huge handle, huge EVA butt. Why not put a little hook keeper here? But they did save half a gram from this. Now, the paint actually has some gold flakes in it in the first 10 inches or so, just from here to here. But I just found about the gold flakes myself 10 minutes ago when I put like 1,000,000 lumens of light on top of the blank. I promise you, you ain't never gonna see these gold flakes, even in a bright sunny day with just a naked eye on the water. So for all sakes and purposes, assume that this rod is entirely black. The entire blank of the YAMAGA blanks has a clear coat on top of the black paint. You can compare the finish with the Eradicator that has no paint, no clear coat. But the guides of the YAMAGA blank are actually a little bit interesting. If you just read the label, it will say titanium frame with torzite inserts, just like every other Japanese rod except Daiwa and Shimano. But these guides are different because, first of all, they're painted in chrome. And I'm gonna show you all the other guides are kind of gunmetal color, which I strongly prefer over chrome. And the other difference is this has two arms instead of one arm. Oh wow, there is so much light reflection that you can't tell the colors at all. But trust me, the Yamaga Blanks looks like almost white because it's bright, shiny chrome color, and this one is just gray, kind of polished looking gunmetal color. Very different looking in real light. The ring itself is approximately, probably exactly the same diameter, but look at the difference in the arms, different curvature, and the eradicator has not only one arm but a shorter arm. The other guide has two arms and they are longer, and because both of them are titanium, you can tell that the frame of this guide will be more than twice heavier than the frame of the eradicator, but obviously that did not bother Yamaga Blanks. Now, while I much prefer the elegant look of single arm gunmetal guide, which is also much lighter than this one, the laws of physics are some inescapable circle that rarely you have a win-win. Most things in physics, folks, are just a trade-off. You trade one thing at the expense of other. And this guide, even though it's uglier, even though it's heavier, actually has some advantages. And the advantage is that it is very rigid. I feel that I can snap the arm here before I bend this. And I've told you in several videos, one problem with these guides is that they are very soft. You're not gonna get much rigidity from a single arm titanium guide. And this rigidity here translates, my friends, into sensitivity. Remember one thing, rigidity is sensitivity. Now, if we compare the top half of the two blanks, compare how far the guide is from the blank. The ring of the guide is from the blank. See on the eradicator, the difference keeps getting even bigger. Single arm guide very close to the blank to save weight. And to improve rigidity, if you have a single arm guide, you can't have it so far from the blank, it will be very soft. But these Yamaga blanks guides, they keep sticking so far from the blank. I know they try to keep the line from touching the blank. I don't know if that's does anything or not, but the fact is they just keep sticking out of the rod. And when you go all the way up to the top, the last thing worth commenting is that the inner diameter of the Yamaga blanks is still about double the inner diameter of the eradicator here. And that's about the same size guides as Daiwa and Shimano have, which Daiwa and Shimano, unlike the other silly brands, have common sense. The eradicator, these guides, that's just pushing it too far. If you have any kind of knot going through these guides, you're gonna hear unpleasant noise all the time, and you have to hope that the knot is not gonna knock the insert out of the guide. While these guides here, you're still gonna hear the noise of the knot, but they tolerate knots much better than the eradicator. I definitely prefer this size for top guide that Yamaga Blanks has, that Daiwa has, and Shimano has. Okay, here is some more information about the rod that you can't get just from watching the over-the-table video. First of all, the power of the blank is exactly ultralight. As a matter of fact, this here is my Saint Croix Legend Elite Panfish, which is also ultralight power, and I use this rod for benchmark for all of my ultralight rods. And the Yamaga Blanks is actually just a little bit softer than my Saint Croix rod. The action of the rod is exactly regular fast. It's not one of these rods where only the tip bends, but it's also not like, it's not comparable to any of those completely parabolic rods that I have reviewed, like this medium light Presso Air AGS here that is just completely parabolic. and even the action of the eradicator is slower compared to these YAMAGA blanks here. The casting distance of this rod is absolutely outstanding. I'm here to tell you, absolutely outstanding. I was casting this exact jig head for hours. This is 1.5 gram jig head with the Zeman Larva Z on it. And I was using 4-pound line, which is a bit much for this rod. And I could not believe how far that jig would fly. I don't know if it's because this rod is a little bit longer than most of my other rods. That definitely helps. I don't know if it's because these guides are keeping the line away from the blank. They say that helps. I don't know if I believe that. But whatever the reason, I'm telling you, I could not believe how far that jig would go, given that I'm using 4-pound line here. And you buy this rod and come and tell me that you were not surprised by the casting distance. Now, as far as line and lure ratings go, the rod says it's designed for line from 1 to 3 pounds, but I told you I used it with 4-pound YGK polyester and it already surpassed my expectations. So I think you can use this rod with 4-pound line just fine. As far as lure ratings, I think the sweet spot for this rod is, if we're talking about jigs, because they talk, when they describe this rod in the website, you will read both jig heads and plugs. Now, I don't know anything about plugs, but if we're talking about jigs, I would say the sweet spot is from 1.5 gram to 3 grams. That's the sweet spot. I actually cast 1 gram trout magnet with this rod with 4-pound line, if you can believe that. And I cast it just fine. And even the distance was, I don't know, okay, all of these rods here, the Presso Air AGS, any one of them will cast 1 gram trout magnet easier, the eradicator much easier. But it's not like I lost a lot of distance with this. It's just that, okay, the blank will obviously not get loaded with 1 gram trout magnet and it's not going to assist you much. So these rods, obviously the blank loads more and it helps you, and it's just easier to cast it. We're not talking about distance. When I'm casting a trout magnet, I'm not trying to get maximum distance. I'm usually pretty close to my target anyway, but it is easier with these rods, obviously. So I would say on the low end, 1.5 gram is where the sweet spot begins. And on the top end, I would say it's about 3 grams. It says 5 grams here. Now let me tell you, if you just want to cast a 5 gram jig with like a Kitech behind it, this will cast it no problem. But if we're talking about jigging and twitching, you know, off the bottom, now if you have a 5 gram jig on the bottom and you try to twitch with this rod, the tip will get overloaded during the twitching and jerking motion. So I would say 3 gram is as heavy as you can go, so you can still jig and twitch and the tip doesn't get overloaded too much, so you can impart the motion that you want to do. So anyway, I think as far as jigs, the sweet spot is from 1.5 gram to 3 grams. Okay, now here is something that really surprised me with this rod. How crisp and sharp and sensitive it is. I already told you in the over the table video that when you open the box or the tube and you pull this rod out, you know, the components of this rod are really underwhelming. The base here is a little bit thick at 9.2 millimeters. The weight, I don't know if I mentioned, 62 grams is a bit much. These guides, a little bit too big. The handle here, large handle, made entirely of EVA foam. You know, EVA foam is not exactly the best conductor of vibration out there. You know, when you look at this rod, there is nothing in the components that says crisp and sharp and sensitive. And yet here I am in front of you, and I will put all of my reputation and I will tell you this rod is crisp and sharp and sensitive. And here is a very interesting true story that you can confirm with Mr. Gary. Now, I said in the very first seconds of the video that this rod belongs to Mr. Gary. And it did when he mailed it to me. But after just one session on the water with this rod, I came home, I sat on my computer, and I sent Mr. Gary an email. Mr. Gary, please let me pay you this rod and keep it. And Mr. Gary let me keep the rod. So as I'm speaking to you right now, this rod is actually my property and I bought it off Mr. Gary. Now, this video is already way too long, I know, but I have to tell you one more thing before I end the video, to make sure that if somebody is considering buying this rod, they have the correct expectations before they pull the trigger. Now, I said that this rod is crisp and sharp and sensitive, and my God, it is. But you know what? Honestly speaking, so are all of my other $300 rods, and I have a kind of a wall over there too. So why did I buy this rod? What does this rod have that my other $300 rods don't? Well, it has a 6'7" length. You know, most of the ultralight and super ultralight rods go only to about 6 foot. The Presso Air AGS family here goes to 6'1". The St. Croix goes to 6 foot. The Belleza is only 5'8" or something like that, very short. Most of these ultralight and super ultralight rods are very short because when you make them long, they start to wobble. Now I have the Eradicator here that is also 6'7", but these two rods are absolutely no alternative for each other for applications. The Eradicator, first of all, is much softer rod than this. Where the muscle of the Eradicator ends, the muscle of the YAMAGA BLANKS begins. This cutoff point is around 1.5 grams. Up to 1.5 gram, I would probably use the Eradicator. 1.5 gram and over, I would probably use this rod. Also, the Eradicator has these microscopic guides that absolutely do not tolerate any kind of knots. If I want to have a leader, I can run a knot through these guides. So, I mean, this tip, look at this. It gets overloaded just too easy. So I would not say that the Eradicator, even though it's the same length as the YAMAGA BLANKS, is alternative to this rod. Then what else? Yeah, I have the 7'6" Soare rod here too, but this rod is also kind of a specialist. I mean, 7'6", come on, man, that's a little bit too much now. I'm never gonna sell this rod, don't get me wrong, but you try to fit this rod inside a truck or inside a car or even inside the box of a boat. It's a little bit too much and you don't need this. Guys, as I was fishing on the boat, I just felt that, you know, for somebody with my dimensions, and I'm kind of average European and American, this 6'7" length is just so comfortable. And I felt, and I have incredible muscle memory when it comes to fishing and with ultralight lures. I need to cast a jig like 5 times, and I can tell you, this is really comfortable to me, and just my muscle memory tells me I don't have anything in my entire lineup like this. So that's why I bought it, because it's a 6'7" ultralight that I don't have, and it's crisp and sharp and sensitive. I just don't have alternative for that. Now, all of that said, would I recommend this rod in all of its models? No. If you are looking for a rod, anything up to 6'1", I can tell you, for example, that the Presso Air AGS will beat this rod in terms of, just in general terms of finesse. Even if you find a model of this rod that is just 6 foot long, okay, and you get a 6 foot long model from the Presso Air AGS family, and they have a roughly similar power in the blanks, which the light and the medium light models of this family, they're approximately ultralight models. I mean, this rod, the YAMAGA blanks, cannot compare with the, don't get the wrong idea, just because I bought it, it doesn't mean that it can compare with the Presso Air AGS. It just extends in a range where the Presso Air AGS does not exist. But if you get a Presso Air AGS, even if both rods are ultralight power, I mean, this is just so much thinner and smaller and lighter that it's not even sensitivity. You know, this thing here is just crazy sensitive. Buy it, and I promise you, when you look at it and hold it with your hands, you're gonna have low expectations, and you're gonna go in the water, and it will surprise you. You're not gonna believe how sensitive it is. I don't know if it's more sensitive than the Presso Air AGS, or which one is more sensitive. But nevertheless, the user experience, just the feeling of finesse, definitely the two rods are on different levels. This here is ultralight, and this one, even if the power is ultralight, I mean, it's a more finesse rod, different experience, and I do prefer the Presso Air AGS feeling of extra finesse. Even the Eradicator, different level of extra finesse than this rod. Even the Beleza, I would say, different level of finesse than this rod. Just more finesse rod. Even if everything is the same, more finesse. It's not the sensitivity. Now, I would put this rod, YAMAGA blanks, definitely higher than the St. Croix rod in terms of finesse and everything, frankly. But I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for a rod to cast like a 1 gram trout magnet, it's not going to be this rod. Even if you find a smaller model that is only 6 foot long and the power is less than the power of this blank, and it will compress and cast the 1 gram trout magnet, it's not going to compare to the Presso Air AGS, it's not going to compare to the Eradicator, and it's not going to compare to the Beleza either, in all honesty. But if you are looking for an amazing ultralight rod that is 6'7" long for bank fishing, but you can use it boat fishing too. I used it boat fishing, but I think it will be more useful to bank anglers. If you are looking for 6'7" ultralight rod for bank fishing, right now I don't know of a better rod than this. Maybe 2 years later, after I have tested 10 more rods, I will. But right now, if you ask me for such a rod, I go and recommend this, and I promise you, you will like it. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching all the way to the end.